Hello, my name is Marty Wolf, and I am presenting Going Back to Japan, Basic Japanese Family History for All Nikkeijin. This is the first of 3 classes. Before I get into the technical aspects of my presentation, I thought I would give a few opening thoughts. First of all, my qualifications. I am not of Japanese descent. I'm not Nikkeijin. However, I did serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Kobe, Japan from 1988 to 1990. I have an undergraduate degree from Stanford University in Japanese that I obtained in 1994. My wife is Japanese. I have also taught a number of Japanese family history classes, first within my church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as well as a number of Buddhist and Christian churches here in Sacramento, California. Finally, this year, in 2020, during the pandemic, I taught 6 classes via Zoom that had a total of 100 people for each class, talking about Japanese family history. Would also like to point out that I will not be discussing internment camps. They are important for Japanese Americans and Japanese Canadians. However, they are not relevant directly to obtaining Japanese Koseki records. Also, I believe that following the steps that I provide here will give you a high rate of success in obtaining Koseki records from Japan. However, it's not 100% guaranteed. There are various reasons, including World War II, earthquakes and fire, that resulted in Japanese records being destroyed. Finally, any documents that you do obtain from Japanese municipal offices will require translation. I wanted to introduce this quote from Lee Iacocca, who was previously the CEO of Chrysler Corporation. He said, "All the success I've had, all the jobs I've saved, and the lives I've influenced would never have happened if my parents had been turned away at Ellis Island." Lee Iacocca was of Italian descent, and so he's pointing out that his parents immigrating was a major impact on his life. And similarly, for Nikkeijin, you are who you are because some of your ancestors decided that, for whatever reason, that it was a good idea to get on a boat and come over to the United States or Canada or other places. And here's my representation of a boat. Many of the classes in this conference are dealing with the ancestors who got on a boat and immigrated somewhere. And it's a major concern because for many people, this immigration point ends up being a dead end. The main message for my class is, this is not as hard as you think it is. Or in other words, this is not as hard as everyone has told you it is. This presentation is going to focus on 3 primary sources for Japanese family history information. The first is your relatives. The second are the Koseki documents, or the family registers. And finally, letters to potential relatives. Most of the presentation, however, will focus on the second topic, the Koseki, the family registers. Before I start talking about the Koseki documents, I'd like to emphasize your relatives, especially the older relatives. If you have an uncle or an aunt who has been collecting family history information. Also, if you have any relatives in Japan, and this is probably cousins by this point, write to them immediately. They may already have done research, and there may already be existing family genealogies. As we start talking about the Koseki documents, the family register, there's going to be 6 questions that I focus on, and these are kind of in a different order than what is normally looked at, but the why and the what will be discussed in the remainder of this first presentation, where and who in the second presentation, and then how and when in the third presentation. Why? I'd like to point out that Koseki are the starting point for all family history research in Japan, and that includes Japanese people currently living there. Japanese citizens are all listed on a Koseki. The challenge for Nikkei, people of Japanese descent, is to connect back to an ancestor who was listed on a Koseki. What? The Koseki system began in the year 1872, just a few years after the Meiji Restoration, which opened up Japan to the West and started a large number of measures to westernize and to modernize. And the Koseki system was one of these measures. In Japan, there are no birth, marriage, or death certificates, and all the Koseki are maintained by the municipal offices, city ward, town, or village halls. And here is a typical Koseki document from my friend Jin Saito. I'd like to talk about the three types of Koseki. The first is Koseki, which refers to family registers in general, but also refers to the current active family registers. The second type are Joseki, which are the Koseki after everyone's name is either removed through death, marriage, divorce, adoption, naturalization, or other means. And finally, the third type of Koseki is the Kaisei-gen Koseki, or the Hara Koseki. And these are Koseki that are made in response to changes in the law or regulation. It may be newer information than other Koseki documents. However, because of the change of rules, the information may also be somewhat limited. For instance, there was a major change right after World War II. So there's newer information on those Hara Koseki, but the definition of a family was greatly reduced. So the expanded family information is not available on the Hara Koseki. For each of the three types of Koseki that I just explained, there are two different forms that they come in. The first is a transcript, or tohon, and the second type is an abstract, or shohon. The tohon is the one that is preferable for family history because it includes the entire extended family. A shohon is limited to a single individual and is usually used for passport applications. Here's a list of family vocabulary that are used on Koseki documents. These are included in the materials that were provided as part of this course. Here's the second part of the family vocabulary list. This slide provides counting vocabulary. Many of you are familiar with Ichi-ni-san, which is provided on the left-hand side of this slide. However, historical documents such as Koseki also use some historical kanji, which you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of this slide. I've also included here a listing of the Japanese eras. These are important because this is how years are shown in the Koseki documents. The current year is Reiwa 3 in 2021. Most important is Meiji and Taisho. These are the time periods when immigration was at its peak. However, some of the early dates that you may see go clear back to the early 1800s. So I've included the Japanese eras beginning in 1801 to the present time. I'm now going to provide a brief analysis of a Koseki to demonstrate what sort of information is available for family history. This is a Joseki document provided by my friend Jin Saito for his ancestors on the Kubota line. And here's the second page of that document. Just a couple of points regarding the details on a Koseki. The Honsekichi, which is the permanent residence or domicile, is on the first page in the upper right-hand corner. The date of issuance and the municipal office seal is on the last page on the far left. All of the writing is top to bottom and right to left. For the older documents, The newest documents will be left to right and top to bottom, but most will be top to bottom and right to left. There will also be many X's, many people that have been crossed out or removed from the Koseki. Ignore the X's because that is the information you will use for your family history research. The head of the household is listed first and then in order of household appearance. Then there may also be duplicate pages if an individual has too much information. And finally, an individual may appear multiple times due to divorce, annulled adoptions, and so forth. There are three main sections in the Koseki document. The first is the Honsekichi, which I mentioned earlier, in the upper right corner of the first page. The second is the primary information, which is in the bottom section of each page, right here. And then the secondary information is in the top portion of each page. And this is the same on all of the Joseki documents that you will be obtaining for your family history. Here's a few details on the primary information. The label A refers to the surname and the first name. The surname will only be indicated for the head of the household, but you'll see first names for each individual. B on the left-hand side is the birth date, indicated by era year, month, and day. C at the top indicates the position in the household relative to the koshu, which is the head of the household. And then D on the right side provides a little more detail on the position in the household. Going back to the Kubota Joseki that we started looking at, there are 13 primary individuals listed. The first 9 are here on the first page, with 4 more on the second page. The names for these 13 individuals are listed here. As you can see, the surname Kubota is only with the head of the household, Kubota Ino Kichi. And then the individual names are listed below. Here's a listing of the birth dates for the 13 primary individuals, indicated by era, year, month, and day. As you can see, it stretches back. Individual 2 was born in 1818, and then clear up to individual 13, born in 1902. Individuals 9, 10, 12, and 13 are using some of the historical characters, whereas the other individuals have the easier characters. For each of the 13 individuals, it indicates their position relative to the head of the household, Koshu, who's individual 1. So you can see it's an extended family, father, mother, a grandmother. There's been 2 wives, there's 2 younger sisters, and then 5 daughters. This is a listing of additional details regarding the family position. For instance, individuals 6 and 7, these were younger sisters, but it indicates their birth order as the 2nd and 3rd daughters. In addition to the 13 primary individuals, there are another 7 individuals listed. 6 of them are up in the secondary section, and there's also an individual 14 listed in the primary section. And individual 14 is actually the grandfather. It shows that he is married to the grandmother, so this provides an additional generation of information. Here's the details on the additional individuals. Much of this information is information regarding the father of females that married into the Kubota line. This is actually a good way of finding information on maternal lines. Just a quick description of the types of information that can be obtained in the upper section. Birth order, the Honsekichi, of both females that were married or adopted in, or males that were adopted in. Also, the Honsekichi of husbands of the females that married out. Discussion of divorces, adoptions, adoption annulments, retirements, deaths, including time and place. There's actually quite a bit of information, usually in the upper section. In closing for this part of the presentation, I thought I would present an example that shows the power of the Koseki documents. This is a fan chart of my friend Jin Saito. He's in the center, and his parents on the next ring out, and then the next ring out after that are his grandparents. Now, Jin is a sansei, third generation, so it shows that his parents and then his grandparents. And where I drew the red line, that's as far as he knew. After researching the Koseki documents, we were able to extend out all the way around at least 2 generations, some 3 generations, and a couple out 4 generations. And his ancestors are from Shizuoka, Kumamoto, and Yamanashi. And the total number of individuals that we identified through the Koseki documents was about 250 people. This is a fan chart for Jean's wife, Patty. Her maiden name was Endo. Again, she is Sansei, 3rd generation. Her parents are listed there, and then the ring outside of there is her issei grandparents out to right here. Again, we were able to, through the Koseki documents, identify 2 generations back all the way around, most of them out to 3 generations, and then a few more out to 4 generations. Her ancestors, everyone on this chart is from Fukushima Prefecture, and there was a large number of individuals that we identified. The total number was about 450, which is probably on the high end of what you could expect to identify using the Koseki documents. Thank you for joining me for part 1 of my presentation, Going Back to Japan, Basic Japanese Family History for All Nikkeijin. I hope you'll join me for the 2nd and 3rd parts, where I'll discuss how to actually request Koseki documents from Japanese municipal offices. Thank you.